Good morning. I'm going to cover quite a bit of stuff. It's sort of like telling a story. So, for example, if I've got 1,000 pages of information that represents data that I'm aware of that's held in that light, and I want to be able to do a complete knowledge transfer of all that data that is held in all that light, that you can hold in all your light, that's what they used to call, when you were a child, being given an exam like the ones they gave us in junior high school called the Iowa State exams. One of the ones that I remember getting a fairly decent grade on, actually I got a high grade on it, is called reading comprehension, which essentially means that you are reading through, based on the language that you learned how to use, all of the data that represents all of the information that is in the question. So what they're testing is your ability to hold information in your light. How much information can you hold in that light and comprehend what the message is? And that's no different than memory programming. When you think of it through the way in which you go into a classroom, you're given information, you log it in or you write it into your memory. Okay? So they're testing your ability to hold a program in that memory. So that's pretty simple. So what I'm going to try and do here, because I am a teacher, but I'm also a student, and I sort of perceive that in the same way that I think of what a receiver is and what a transmitter is, okay? Because when I wake up in the morning, I get so much data, if you will, information that is just is passing through me. I'm just going, get out my pad, start writing it all down. When I was living in a motel room over in Reno 4 years ago, I had just a stack of pads, just writing like crazy, because when you're using a computer and you're using a cell phone and you start putting it in a digital format, I know these guys. They're going to delete it all. They're going to wipe it. They don't want you to know this stuff. Okay? I'm simply a data processing unit. Actually, I'm Spirit. Okay? I'm not the biotech. We use the biotech as a communication platform while we're down here. To do what? What is our function? Patty Broussard will tell you, who's Gaia Shaman. She's the holder of the Ring of Midas. Those are the builder's tools of planet Earth. Okay? So, she has an enormous amount of power. She was given a job to do. So anyway, just to clear up one thing, questions that people have who might watch these videos that I put up. Why, if you're a teacher and you went through all this schooling, why are you not wearing a three-piece suit and driving a Ferrari and you're some professor at some university? I'll give you the answer to those questions, okay? I'm not what that is. Okay? I went into their systems to collect all their data to find out how they were programming people and how I can best use that information to be able to explain to others how they do it. That's the truth of it. When I graduated from the University of Arkansas, I could have gone and taught in elementary school, junior high school, vocational education. They even asked me, you want to go into a PhD program? No, I don't. Why? Because they're going to use my work product, what comes out of my creative conscious mind, okay, and they're going to use it against me. Why would I do that? Because that's what they do. They don't have the ability and that much power to run that much data, to run that much conscious creative mind, okay, imagination, okay? They'll use it against us. So I'm not going to provide you with any of that. They think that whatever you create is theirs. It's not. Okay? I don't even consider it mine. Because when you're spending so much data that represents all the data that is possible for you to experience out there, I think of it as belonging to everybody. Okay? It's a matter of, what do you do with that data? What do you do with that information? So when I was a child growing up, that was one of the first things I looked at in all the popular science, popular mechanics, all my dad's engineering manuals. I'm looking, okay, what are they doing with all the science and knowledge that these people have? And when you look around you go, man, nobody's benefiting from all this stuff. How come? Because they don't want to share it with you. So I realized the greatest threat that we have, which pretty much becomes obvious, and when you have a built-in looking glass, which means in a present moment, and you realize what I call the level of knowledge acquisition that they're at now. And I said to myself, well, imagine where they'd be in 100 million years when you measure the exponential function in terms of the speed of the knowledge that's being gained upon which they use that knowledge to manufacture things, build things. Well, hell, all these systems, which is really systems engineering, which is information engineering, means that they're using the network in order to acquire knowledge, okay, in order to do everything that they did underground. Okay? They don't give a shit about us. Never did. That's not who they are. Okay? So I'm not going to give them a helping hand. Because at the end of the day, I realize I'm spirit. This is just a temporary unit. Okay? I mentioned in one of my videos. I'm here and I'm gone. Okay? It's like not even like a grain of sand in the cosmos in terms of time, because there is no time. That's living in the conscious creative mind. You're always, it's why it's like when things come to me in the morning, like right now, if I don't write all this stuff down, it's gone. It's gone. I'm just, there's something else in my conscious mind that's, we're Imagineers is what we are. I'm an engineer. But you can wear as many hats as you want because you have infinite imagination, because you're using infinite light in which to do it with. So I wrote something down here, and maybe this can click. It's one of the reasons that I work with children, okay? Some people might find this offensive, but it's true, because I can demonstrate that it's true because I experienced it. Okay? That's what we do. We measure our experiences. That's coursework. So what you're doing is you're placing a value tag on the experience. And the experience is represented by the energy of the experience. So with me, I'm used to saying I'm not supposed to experience anything less than what love is. Then why am I experiencing anything that is less than a waveform that is vibrating so fast, which is what I'm experiencing? Why am I experiencing something less than that? Right? So that's pretty easy to put together in all the things that I already put up, right? I mean, that's common sense. That's logic. Okay? So what I do is see, much in the same way when I had an interface with Patty Broussard. She has her library. She has her knowledge. All the data that she uses in order for her to do what it is that she does is held within that light in order to do what it is that she does. Okay? Just like I do. Just like we all do. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, how much light are you using to hold all the data that you're aware of? Well, when you're aware of something in a given moment, but you're aware that that light and everything that is out there is infinite, we have to tell stories in incremental, one sentence at a time. Okay? That's why I wrote this down, because this is exactly how it works for us. I say us because I don't think of me. I think of all of us, because you are part of the fabric of the entire cosmos. It's like being in the movie. Consciousness, the light. Everything is in the light. Okay? So I wrote this down, and maybe this will connect a lot of dots, fill in a lot of spaces, and it goes bang. Okay? Because I know how this works with children that haven't been fully programmed yet. Memory programs. Programmed memories. So I thought, open your mind. Open our minds. Okay? Which is sort of like when I was a child anyway, I realized that since you've got infinite imagination, anything is possible to experience. So it's like, you're not going to shock me. There ain't no way you're going to shock me. And when you realize you have infinite imagination, that any possibility exists within that imagination that is held within that light, if you experience something that's just like way out there on the extreme spectrum, I would expect that. Okay? And then we get into expectations. Remember the director of the play? So if an actor doesn't comply with what the director's saying, and this gets into what they call the serenity prayer, you know, my ability to accept the universe as it is, as just the way it's supposed to be, right? And then you got a stop sign that says, well, wait a second, there is a rule in this universe, right? Well, what is the rule that governs behavior? Well, if love is the law and you are what love is, then you're the rule book, right? Okay? Because it means that I don't have to use any of my energy to either protect myself or use my energy to build something or manifest something, in which I'm going to use that in order to either remove you or make sure that you don't harm any other living spirit that has its free will right to express itself without it having to worry about a predator. Okay? So anyway, I wrote this down. I talked about a powerful magnet. What does it mean to be a powerful magnet? What is the most powerful magnet? Your heart is. Okay? So if you experience everything that you experience through your heart, that's a powerful vortex. That means you're spinning an enormous amount of light in a tornado that you have in that heart. So I realized when I was a child, by reading my first newspaper, that I was in a spiritual battlefield. Then you immediately know where your anchor is. And the anchor is source, the source from which all light comes. The biggest tornado there is, which means you're never going to be able to put the flame out that burns the hottest furnace, that burns the hottest light. Because you realize that the nature of a war like this, when you realize the things that they do here, okay, so we're talking stripping souls out of beings and using it as food later on. Wow. They do that shit? Yes, they do. So you realize, when you realize the kind of spiritual battlefield that you're in here, this isn't tiddlywinks or playing games. Okay? So you know right away that she gave you a heart. When I talk about her, I'm speaking with the girl and the planet, the great living spirit of Mother Earth. I know what she gave me. She gave me protection. And that protection is your heart. That's where you can spin the most light, which is the most love, that all the data and all of our experiences are held within that. And when you're burning a hot furnace to keep that light hot, they don't get your heart. So they don't get the heart. No matter how much trauma, no matter how horrific it is, okay? I remember a while back even President Trump said, you have to learn to be able to dissolve it. Now, I'll be honest with you, just a little while ago, I cried deeply, okay? Because I experienced when you absorb so much of what you're aware of being here, okay? And everything that happened here as a result of the trauma, okay? There probably isn't a day that goes by where I don't cry deeply 2 or 3 times, like right now. You have no idea how painful this is. Because I know what they did to her. I experience what they do to her. What they do to everything on this planet. And it kills my heart. So my heart has to be able to recover from that. So you know how to do that. Yes, we know how to do that. That flame will never go out for that goddess that's in this planet. So I thought to myself, when you're holding the attention of children, because you have such a powerful magnet, because you have so much light that is held within, okay, then you realize that holding the attention of children forever, of everything we call experience, that is held in that light that goes on forever, that's a lot of fire in that light to have that much candle power. That's our flame. It's always lit. And when a child can feel that you have that much love and that much light within your heart because you have so many beautiful stories that holds their attention, then you are holding their light. They can feel how much light you have. And when that happens and you have their attention, that's when the student is making an alignment connection with the teacher. And that's how we do it. Okay? So when I finished my graduate program, I thought, okay, so I go get one of their licenses. I don't need a license to teach, okay, which is nothing more than passing on information that is held within that light. That's it. So I could go out and hold a classroom out in the middle of a ball field somewhere or on the sand next to an ocean someday, which is beautiful because then they can feel and experience the beauty of the waves that are coming in. So the environment in which we hold a class is very much critical or important to the energy that the student is experiencing while we are sharing ancient spiritual knowledge. because this information has been around forever. So anyway, I made a lot of notes to myself this morning because there was just a lot that was just running through me. So I thought I'd share it, okay, because it's information that I experience and it's relevant, particularly now during this period of time, because events on an event horizon timeline are accelerating at an enormous rate of speed, because I realize just within my own mind, if you will, and spirit, I'm experiencing that I'm going, how do I put this? I'm more in my conscious, creative mind than I've ever been since I've been here. Okay, which means I'm moving towards no memory. So I realize I don't know how much time I have left here, but whatever. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm putting these videos up. I was prompted to start putting all this information out. It may not be viewed by more than 50 people, and that's perfectly fine. Because one of the things that happens when you're sharing this kind of stuff, you're putting it into the network through YouTube. So that means that this information that I'm experiencing is being presented and communicated through the network. And when it goes up on YouTube, it's there. Okay, which ties directly into neurotransmitters. That's why, when was it, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was on the phone with a girl in a motel room who was living in Texas. She could feel the communication from my heart to her. She goes, I can feel how much love you have in your heart. I can feel it. Really? She goes, yes, I can. So I realized, wow, cool, that's the network. The power of your neurotransmitters. We're connecting with her neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitters of the information of what we're experiencing is beautiful, because you realize the speed at which those neurotransmitters are sending the information to other neurotransmitters is almost now time. So I was measuring that the other day with Lori Ladd, who I was prompted to. It's sort of like the way that the light attracts other high-frequency light. Like when I was on the Big Island, for example, I met an awful lot of very beautiful people there. And I ran across 2 gentlemen that were together that came down to Lapoihoi Beach Point, which is a famous place for healing because the energies there are just so high, okay? And here were 2 gentlemen, and one of them was from Alaska, who mentioned to me what he uses called art therapy with people who've been traumatized. And that is a very effective way to do that. That's one of the reasons why I suggested that, particularly with children or anybody that's been traumatized, is trying to restore the light in their heart, which is restoring your memory, okay? This is who I am. And experiencing what the love is that they have in their own heart, okay? And that was through art therapy. That's the conscious creative mind, okay? That you could feel in your heart the creativity that you have in using the conscious creative mind with the amount of love that you have through your heart, which is what the light is that you're doing it with. So this becomes a simple way to reestablish, okay, the healing process that takes place to get your energy back up. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. Okay, so I made a couple of notes to myself here about the conscious creative mind versus memory-driven programs developed by programmers. Okay, like an EEG and an EKG. EKG is a sine wave. EEG is all waves. So what do they do? I'm talking about the other guys, the bad guys. The more they know about how all this works, okay, you already know that they're going to use the information about how all that works to be able to control you, because they don't want to lose contact with you unless they finally say to themselves, listen, we're done with you. We got no more use for you anymore. So they decide, you know what, you're out of here. We're just going to kill you all off. And that's what they were attempting to do. How many people actually knew that who were on this planet? This is where programming comes in. If the only thing that you're aware of is what is in memory, and they're the ones who put the information in your memory, then the only thing that you're aware of is what it was that they programmed, which is people. Unless your state of awareness was already aware of how the programming works when you come in here as a child. And the unfortunate part of that is they just weren't aware of it. And getting into the mechanics of how all that works is an entirely different course. Okay? So you can get into Vortex math. I just throw that word out there. So if you have an inclination to want to go look at that, how vortex mathematics work? Because that's what I am, a vortex. Okay, so how big is your tornado? How much energy are you spinning in that light? How much love do you have? How powerful is your furnace? So I call it spinning the top. Spinning the water in a toilet. How fast is your tornado? The torus field of our heart. That's why as a child, after acknowledging I was in a spiritual battlefield, my heart is the most powerful vortex. They don't get it. So it's very challenging for us when I'm experiencing so much data. Because holding it in memory is very difficult. Because it's like more just keeps on coming. See? So it's just like, hook a printer up to me. Right? Okay? So when I'm in my conscious creative mind, it means that I can project and manifest what all those images are because they're moving so fast. So when I realize I'm moving from memory to no memory, pass the information on. So if others can begin to perceive sort of how this works, then they can imagine the power they have within them with how much light they can spin in their vortex. So imagine what happens in terms of potential when we're in a state in which running that kind of energy allows us to be free to be who we are, because the energy that we're using to experience who we are is running at such a high frequency state of consciousness that we're not aware of any reason to feel fear. That means you're the rule book, which is self-rule. So we don't need and we don't use political systems because we're living spirit. That's different. So anyway, the next thing, and I'll probably just cut the next video because I realize I run out of memory on this thing, is identity function. Changes over time based on experiences. And then we get into redundancy. Okay? If you're just like a drill press going up and down and nothing's really changing in order for our ability to learn from each experience that is different from the last, then it's just like if you think you're in a time clock, you're not really moving forward. You're simply repeating the same thing even though we're always moving in motion in space-time. Okay? So this was when I talked about in an earlier video when I talked about the speed at which we're all learning in a classroom. So they had to interrupt that whole process. Okay? That allows the souls that come in here, if you will, because you're given X amount of time to be able to graduate, which is nothing more than getting your speed up so that your core frequency identity is able to ascend to a higher dimensional realm. How are you going to be able to do that if the speed of your learning, which means you're learning from the experiences how light works, you're not able to do it within the given time period because of what happened here? Okay, so these are horrific crimes because going around and wrecking classrooms and killing off teachers in the cosmos is the worst crime I know of. That along with what they do to souls on this planet. So obviously, how do we solve that problem? Network engineers have to come in. Isn't that correct? Because you're in a network of communication. We're the engineers that build this stuff. So anyway, I'll stop here on this video and then get into deprogrammers, programming, memory, conscious creative mind. Thank you very much, Bruce Lipton. And I forget the other guy's name that he's with because Bruce Lipton, longtime microbiologist, the biology of belief. I looked at a lot of his work. He's got it. Being in your conscious creative mind, like rewriting your software, is no different than saying, listen, I'm the author of my own story. And I'm using very powerful energy to write all my stories with, and I'm sharing them with you, everybody. So I know these things sound simple, but living them as a living philosophy of knowing who you are because you are the author of your own story, then that means that you're writing a beautiful story for yourself because you love to live in the beauty of the cosmos that is there for you to experience what you choose to experience for yourself. Because love is the law, and when you're experiencing yourself and writing your own stories with that energy is beautiful to experience, isn't it? And that's pretty common sense. So when you're doing that with children, then you realize what the future looks like with your children and future generations. That's why we're doing what we're doing now, is we're ending the recycling and harvesting of energy. Thank you all for being here.